Okay, so after talking about normal dominance, we got into something that we called incomplete or intermediate dominance. And I told you that incomplete goes with in between in your head. This is the kind of dominance where if one of your parents was black and your other parent was white, you might end up gray, the color that's in between those. If your mom was very tall and your dad was very short and height is incomplete dominant, then you'll end up medium sized. But there's another way that alleles can combine, and that is called codominance, and that's the one where you get both traits at once. This is an example where if you have black and white, this is codominance. If a trait is codominant, then if one of your parents was black and the other one was white, you'll end up black and white. Or what with people's hair we call it salt and pepper, where some of your hairs are black, some of them are white. From a distance, you might look gray, but once you get closer, you realize that there is no gray. There's just a mixture of these two colors, where the alleles say, all right, I'll take these hairs and make them totally black. You take those hairs, make them totally white, and we'll just have both at once. So codominant is both at the same time. And the example they're pulling out first is the hair color in cattle. Some bulls are red, or some oxen are red, and some are white, and some of them are a color that they call roan, which looks something like this. Sorry, I didn't frame this wonderfully, but this is roan color, and it happens when you have some red hairs and some white hairs on the same animal. And from a distance, they say that looks pink. I don't know how accurate that is, but you can see this isn't a true red color. That one back there is kind of red. It definitely isn't white. Up close, you could get a tweezers and you could pull a white hair and a red hair out of this same animal because they're both being expressed at the same time. So that's roan. And in the example they're giving, they have an allele HR, which would be for hair red. That's your red allele. And there's another allele that is HW, which would be for hair white. And if you are HRHR, that means you're a purebred white, or I'm sorry, you're a purebred red. You will be an ox with red hair. If you're HWHW, you will be an ox with white hair. And if you're HRHW, I'm putting them in alphabetical order, then you'll have both at once, and people will call you a roan. So, if we cross, what they have here is a roan cow, meaning RW, there she is, and a roan bull, he's RW also. What kind of ox babies can they have? Let's see. Here we get R and R. HR. Here we get HRHW. Here we get HWHR, but don't write it that way. Remember to alphabetize them. And last possibility is HWHW. Right? So the Punnett square rules don't change. Just the part that changes is what we're about to do now, where we figure out what these colors actually are. Red and red is easy. This ox will be red. Red and white. This isn't dominant, so we can't just look at the first one. We have to say red and white means you get red and white at the same time. This is what we call roan. Here, red and white, roan again. And finally, white and white gives you a white ox. Okay, so codominance is where both traits have to show up at the same time. If it's something, let me just give you a couple other examples to wrap this up. Black hair plus white hair would give you what we call salt and pepper, both colors at once. If eye color were codominant, like if you had a brown-eyed parent and a blue-eyed parent and eye color was codominant, that would mean something like you have one brown eye and one blue eye, or a little more realistically, it might mean that you have an eye where the iris has some patches that are blue, and sitting right next to that, there are patches of brown. Your eye would have flecks in it. That would be a realistic way to get codominance in eye color. If you remember snapdragons, where they talked about them having a red and white color, if that were codominant, it's normally incomplete dominant, but if it were codominant, you'd get a flower that had some red petals and right next to them some white petals. So you're getting the red and the white on the same flower. And funny example, this is one that people sometimes use to help remember this stuff. Just because it's so bizarre, it kind of sticks in their heads. What if you had, I'll do this on another page. What if you had big L was long legs in a person and little l was short legs? What would that mean? What would it mean if you were big L, little l? What would that mean if it's normal dominance? What would that mean if it's incomplete dominance? And what would that mean if it was codominance? So here's your mom who has ridiculous long legs, and here's your dad who has stubby legs. What do you look like under normal dominance? With normal dominance, you'd say, okay, long legs is a capital letter, that dominates, you will have long legs. You'll get your mom's legs. The little l does not matter. Your little l does not matter. You just get the long legs because that's the dominant trait. Incomplete dominance means in between, meaning you get legs that are between long and short. In this case, you will have medium legs. Are those medium? Let's go a little more. Not as long as your mom, definitely not as short as your dad. Here you get medium. And the last one is bizarre. Codominance means you have to have long legs and short legs at the same time, which means you have a problem. You have that. Codominance means you express the long leg and the short leg trait at the same time, which means you'd have one long leg and one short leg. Happily, leg length is not codominant, so this doesn't happen, but that's what it would look like. Codominance means you got to show both things at the same time. Incomplete means you compromise, and normal means one of them wins and the other one gets ignored. All right?